We've been talking about shame for the last few weeks. You would have to say that in every way imaginable, in every way it possibly can, shame demolishes the work of recovery. Amen? It's like, as I've come to really understand more and more about recovery, gotta say that the power of shame is as destructive as anything else I've ever seen in everybody's life. And so I think that trauma kind of comes out of shame because we kind of blend those two together. But shame demolishes opportunity for recovery. And as long as we have that living in us, we're going to struggle with how it is we can be free. I think tonight, like a whole lot of us, do or have believed that we're just really not enough. We just really can't get it right. We just don't really deserve the good stuff. We don't really deserve what other people are going to have. We don't deserve like the good news of Jesus, not in the way other good church people do. We don't really get that. Like we shouldn't have that. And it's like you have Jesus going, who says? But see, then you have the voice of the enemy. And the voice of the enemy is telling us 100% of the time, which is where this shame comes from. You're not enough. You're not good enough. You're not fast enough. You're not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not handsome enough. You're not successful enough. You're not enough. And not only are all those things true, his parting shot is, and you know what? You're never going to be enough. You're never going to be enough. What I want to say to the enemy is, we are not giving you a seat at our table. Amen? We're not. We're going to reject that outright. We're going to reject everything that you just heard about what he's saying to you outright. We are not giving you a seat at our table. You don't belong here. We don't want you here. We're sitting at our table with a party of two, us and Jesus, a party of two. Tonight, I really hope that you'll start to learn what it could be like for you to claim your table as a party of two. I want to read this quote to you. So this is what it says. All sin, all idolatry, all coping strategies in which I indulge are ways for me to satiate or fill my hunger for relationship, my longing to be known and loved, my desire to be desired. But see, what shame does is push that opportunity a million miles away from me. I have this desire, very simple, to love and to be loved, and shame says, no, you don't deserve that. No, you're not going to get that. No, you're not going to have that. And that's true because the person that I was talking about that would like to have a seat at your table tonight, that person is called the lie master. And the thing about the lie master is, the lie master's story will always be the same. And the core of the lie master's story is, it'll always have to do with performance. Good enough, fast enough, strong enough, smart enough, pretty enough, all that. It'll always have to do with performance. The story will always be about that. And Jesus' story will always be about something else. Jesus' story will always be about something better. Jesus' story will say, you know, what I want to offer you is better. If you can believe that, then the next piece of that is, what I want to offer you is being loved. So I want to read this quote to you. It says, so when we doubt ourselves, especially in the face of what we consider to be important events in our lives, we're actually doubting our sense of connection with others, not the least of which is with God. We doubt that we're going to be okay. To be okay as a human is first and foremost about being connected to God and to others. It is not ultimately about having enough information, skill, intelligence, or experience. Neither is it about being youthful, svelte, or ripped, nor having enough money, sex, or power. And when doubt involves any of these, you had best be confident that shame is the emotional feature that is deeply at work. Hardest thing about shame is when we're kind of in the middle of it, we generally don't talk about it to anybody. Like, we just feel it. That not enough feeling, you're probably not going to talk about that out loud. You're probably not going to talk about that even in a recovery group. You probably won't. It would take a long time for you to get to a place of going, yeah, when I was going through that, I just did not feel good enough, deserving enough. It's like, I've told this story before, but it's like, man, I got to a point with my own children where I became very convinced over a period of a month or two that the best thing that could happen to them is that I would basically give them to other family members. Because I was like, I don't really know if I can kind of be the dad that they're going to need through all of this. I don't know. And I mean, I was seriously sitting there, thinking about that hard and fast. And I think about that now, and I mean, like, maybe now my kids are like, Dad, for God's sake, you should have done it, but it's like, I mean, I think about that now that I'm like, wow, I became completely convinced with this whole power of shame, completely convinced that there was somebody out there who was not the father of my children, who could have done better than where I was right then. Wow. Look at the power of that emotion of shame. So, kind of goes on, it goes, well, gone is the joy which has been sheared off while the man and the woman were not paying attention to what they were sensing, imaging, feeling, or thinking. Disintegrated are the relationships in which God and the couple enjoyed the love of being known. And who is being talked about there? Well, Adam and Eve are being talked about there. They're being talked about there because God says one simple thing. Whatever you do, there's like one rule in this whole beautiful garden. You can read Genesis, first book of the Bible, read chapters 1 through 3, and you'll see the whole story. And God's like, whatever you do, don't eat from the fruit of that tree. What do? 37 seconds later, hey, have some of this apple. 51 seconds later, God's asking questions when they're on the run. Why are you hiding? Why are you running? They're like, well, we learned several things in the last 27 seconds. We learned that we're naked. See, like they never knew that or paid attention to that before. They never felt the way they had felt then before. They never knew shame. They were naked and not ashamed. They never knew anything about it. I really think in all of history, that's the last time human beings in general never knew anything about shame. I think it is. I kind of think it is. You learn as a very little kid, like you, I have a stepson who gets it's a great plan, but he gets a big old nice new bike for Christmas. Well, for some reason, he was riding the somewhat smaller bike, but Christmas Day comes and goes, doesn't want to ride it, the next day, all that. And I mean, this kid has been up until this week terrified of the idea of riding this bike. Why was he terrified? Because he rode the bike about 2 houses down, crashed it on the road, and didn't know what to do next. You know, it's like, let's talk about what that kind of shame does. Let's talk about that performance orientation. Let's talk about what it's like when you crash your bike, you crash your life, you crash your job, you crash your marriage, you crash your health. Let's talk about that. And you're like, no, let's not. Let's not. Because it's hard. It's hard stuff. And so what one piece of this little story about the bike, so Finn, you know, my youngest daughter is now the stepmother of Finn. So she says to Finn, I'm like, great parenting there, honey. But anyway, she says to Finn, well, I mean, Finn, we're going to be going down to Hilton Head this weekend. And I mean, like, the thing is, all the other kids are going to be riding their bikes. And I don't know what you're going to do. I'm like, that's perfect, honey. Use guilt when you have to. Like, I don't want to know, like, did I teach you that? Please, God, don't tell me that. I don't want to know that. I bet I did. But anyway, all of a sudden, magically, the kid, so he's got these two cousins who he loves dearly. And what does he do? He gets on the bike and he pedals like 6 or 7 times. First time he's ever done that. Well, what was driving that? What was driving that was the beginnings, the precursor of, you know what, if I'm going to ride this bike, I'm probably going to fail. I'm probably going to fail. And I'll be embarrassed. And it'll be bad. Well, so you go, so what do you think God is saying to you right now? You go, I'm probably going to fail. And God's going to go, yeah, you could. So what? I got you. I love you. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to pick you up, put you back on the bike, and we'll do it again. And we're going to get it right sometime, pretty soon. See, like for him, he's a very coordinated kid, very good athlete, all that, like really good athlete. And I mean, he should be able to ride a bike, no questions asked, right? Well, he can, until he can't. Because in his early stages of being afraid and ashamed of what he can't do, that's where the festering, you're not enough, you can't do it the right way, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough, you're not fast enough, you're not balanced enough, all comes out. It all comes out. And the way you do it is you do it in the way that God's doing it, and you go, don't believe it. Don't believe it. If we go on, it goes, it doesn't matter that God attempts to engage the man and the woman looking for a real conversation, a real partner in a real relationship. See, shame would have none of that. No longer would connection, curiosity, and creativity be engaged freely without the worry of failure or being exposed and humiliated for making mistakes. There was this new bent order, one filled with thistles, undermining, and abuse. Shame's mission was complete. That's the biblical narrative that we see in the first 3 chapters in the first book called Genesis. Don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Shame's mission is only complete when you don't stretch your hands out and say, God, I need you to love me right now. I need you to hold me right now. I need you to tell me again, probably every day, that I'm worthy, that I'm your treasure, that I'm your priceless one, and that I, even though the whole world over here is telling me something different, I am the apple of your eye. I'm the apple of your eye. In this story, God's movement creates space for the woman and the man to encounter their own and each other inner selves in fresh, albeit challenging ways, giving them the opportunity to confront what loving is all about, choosing for rather than against relationship in the face of shame's distressing presence. See, shame produces doubt. And doubt is absolutely like a poisonous yeast. Like now we're about to get into cooking class, of which I don't know a freaking thing, So I do kind of vaguely know that in order to bake bread, don't smile like that. In order to bake bread, tell them I'm doing this right so far, right? In order to bake bread, you got to have yeast, don't you? Right? And you got to let the yeast kind of boil up or fill up or do whatever the heck it does. I don't know, but you got to do that. Well, when the yeast is bad, the bread is bad. When the yeast is bad, the bread is bad. The yeast, you are not your own yeast. You were never designed to be your own yeast. The yeast for all of us is Jesus. He is our yeast. When we decide we're going to have some other kind of yeast, it's going to be tough. And the enemy's sole job is to dislodge us from the heart of God. See, the heart of the Father, it's just this simple. You go, would you trade the heart of the Father? Would you trade it for this pear? This is the enemy. Have some of this pear. It's pretty good. This is a pretty good pear. This is like the best pear you've ever had. The thing is, she doesn't even know what a pear is right then. She never had one. But the enemy's like, well, you don't want to miss out. Have this pear. Just have it. Have a little bit. Just have a little bit. Well, right away that tells me what? That tells me that she's well on her way to believing less of herself, less about herself, less of what God is offering her, less of the blessing that God is trying to give her, which is freedom and life. See, shame at the end of the day is exactly like that. It only takes away, it only steals and destroys, it only creates death, it only takes power away, it only takes life away. Who does that sound like? Sounds like the enemy, doesn't it? And yet, gotta say, churches are really good at figuring out all kinds of devious and deceptive ways to sort of show you shame messages that simply are not the gospel. Amen? The gospel is simple. The gospel is Jesus came to love us. He died on the cross to show us how much. He rose from the dead to show us how much he is still loving us and to say to us, you will never have to live like that again, ever. Shame says, no, he's lying. He's lying. But see, the fact of the matter is, like it or not, and churches are included in this, like we are absolutely a shame-based culture. We are. The warrior who's fighting against shame is Jesus. How do I know that? Because I see it in this original story. Adam and Eve break their relationship with God, and what do? They do something they would have never done before. They ran and they hid. They knew they were naked and they were ashamed. None of that was happening before that pair. Nothing. They were free with God. God was free with them. They were going to live forever. That's the way it was going to be. Well, in order to combat that, we need a warrior. That warrior is Jesus. Adam and Eve hid, and God covered. They hid, but he covered. They ran, but he came. They ran away, but he kept searching for them. He's going to search for you tonight. He will search for you tomorrow. He will search for you until you allow him to find you. Hope you'll keep coming back. Hope you'll keep letting God search for you, and I hope that someday you'll let yourself fall into his loving arms. In Jesus' sweet name, amen.